Three, two, one. Testing just to make sure that the Hey Village, welcome to another episode of Womanhood Decoded, where we challenge outdated ideas, celebrate progress, and have real conversations about the power and potential of women today. I'm your host, Tasha Ray, and I am so glad that you're joining me for this episode. So let's kick things off with a quote from the great Maya Angelou. Each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. Now, that quote stuck with me because it reminds us that our voices and our choices just don't impact us individually. They have a ripple effect. When one woman dares to live life on her own terms, she paves the way for other women to do the same. And that's why today's episode is all about a woman's place. And I just want to take a quick moment to thank each and every one of you for all of your warm greetings and messages while I have been sick with the flu. I'm doing my best today, but give me grace. I don't have a temperature, and my symptoms are, for the most part, on the mend, but I'm still not feeling my best, but I'm going to through today and do the very best that I can. And thank you to Mia for taking time to check in today, and for everyone else, I truly appreciate your time today. So, again, the whole purpose of this episode is exploring where a woman's place is. Spoiler alert, the answer is simple: wherever she wants to be. Now, I think we can all agree that the definition of a woman's place has changed dramatically over the years. Once upon a time, a woman's role was crystal clear: be a wife, be a mother, keep the house in order, volunteer. That was it. And for some women, that was fulfilling, but for others, it was limiting, frustrating, and even suffocating. Thankfully, times have changed. Women are now doctors, engineers, CEOs, artists, politicians, entrepreneurs, and everything in between. But here's the thing: choosing to step outside of traditional roles doesn't make someone more or less a woman. Just choosing to embrace those roles doesn't make you either more feminine or less feminine. Now, let's just pause and really let that sink in for a moment. Society has a funny way of trying to put women in little neat boxes. If you're a stay-at-home mom, people ask, but you don't want to do more? If you are career driven and you don't have any children, people say, but you don't want to start a family? It's almost like there is no way to win. A few trailblazers come to mind: Oprah Winfrey, Tracy Ellis Ross, and Taraji P. Henson. Each of these women are a force of nature, and yet, when interviewed, their relationship status, or lack of holding the title of wife repeatedly takes the center stage. Personally, as a woman marching to my mid 40s, I'm infuriated by this. And that's why I say, forget the boxes. A woman's place is wherever she feels called to be. This means that if one has been single or unmarried, they can also choose to make a different choice and take a different path. But I don't believe that the sum of a woman's worth has any business being limited to the roles of simply being a mother and a wife. Now, I'd like us to just reflect on a couple contexts. How many of you all have ever felt pressure to live up to a certain expectation of womanhood? Maybe you felt this pressure from family, friends, or even society at large. Have you ever felt the pressure that you needed to shape your choices because of the fact that you're a woman? Moment of transparency. I have answered yes to all of the above. And it was a hard pill to swallow to realize just how much I've allowed other voices to impact how I viewed myself and how I moved through life. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So feel free to message me on Instagram at Tasha's Views. You can find my email and also my LinkedIn, all of which are available in my bio on Instagram. I'd love for this to be a conversation. Now, let's talk about something that I think often about, and that is the financial side of gender roles. Once upon a time, many families could thrive on a single income. Imagine that. A husband could go to work and the wife could stay home if she wanted to. Now, obviously, that wasn't ideal for everyone, especially women who had their own ambitions outside of the home, but it was an option economically. Fast forward to today, and for most families, that just isn't possible. The cost of living has skyrocketed, and I don't have to tell you that. Wages haven't kept up. So the idea of a household surviving on just one salary is pretty rare, unless you choose the less conventional path of entrepreneurship, have a trust fund, become a successful artist, athlete, or hit it big in real estate. In today's world with inflation, can we take a moment to talk about the absurd price of eggs? I mean, seriously, there's not really an option to thrive on the 9-to-5 hamster wheel of one income. The shift has made two-income households the norm, not just for personal fulfillment, but as a means for survival. And while that's great for women's economic independence, it also has me thinking about something else. What if the economy actually supported families in a way where one income could be enough, and where the family wasn't just scraping by? Just imagine what that would be like. Would more women feel like they actually had choices instead of being forced into work just to make ends meet? What would true economic freedom look like for a woman? Something to simmer about, I would think. And while we're doing that, let's dig deeper and think about making ends meet. Where does purpose and passion come into play? Or do we just shove those things to the back of our minds out of the need to survive? If you have thoughts on this, please drop them in the comments on wherever platform that you're watching on. And again, thank you for taking the time to join me on Instagram and wherever else that you are watching. I truly appreciate your time and support today. So I have a book highlight, and let's take a moment to look at the book. And the book is called How to Be Successful Without Hurting Men's Feelings: Non-Threatening Leadership Strategies for Women by Sarah Cooper. Now, if you've ever had to walk the tightrope of being assertive and not being bossy, strong but not being intimidating, or smart but not too smart, then this book might be a book for you to consider. In this book, the author uses humor to highlight the ridiculous double standards that women in leadership face. And while it is funny, it is also frustrating because these are real struggles. One of my favorite insights of the book is about communication. Women are often expected to phrase things in ways that feel softer or are more palatable. Instead of saying, "I disagree," we're taught to say, "I see your point, but I feel like maybe." Does that sound familiar to anyone? Instead of confidently stating an idea, we add disclaimers like, "This might be a silly idea, but..." Why do we do this as women? Because society has conditioned us to avoid making people, especially men, uncomfortable with our confidence. But let's be clear, confidence is not at all a bad thing. Being direct isn't rude. Setting boundaries is not aggressive. Knowing your worth is not arrogance. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's eye-opening, hilarious, and honestly a must-read for any woman negotiating the workplace and honestly just life in general. I found it not only to be a quick read, but a fun and educational read as well. And who doesn't love a 2-for-1 special? I want to move on to an even harder topic that is adjacent to this one, and that is equal pay. Every year we acknowledge Equal Pay Day. And every year we are reminded that women are still making less than men for the very same work. How is this happening in 2025? Hey, Kev, thank you for joining and for your support. The numbers don't lie. Women make 82 cents for every dollar a man makes. And for Black women, the number drops to 63 cents on the dollar. And for Latina women, it is 58 cents. And before I'm attacked in the comments, people say, well, women should just negotiate better. Studies show that when women do negotiate, they are more likely to be penalized for it. Did you know that? Or there is this thing called the imposter syndrome. And that really kicks in for women when it comes to negotiation and fair pay, and especially as it pertains to salary and project or retainer fees. Women fundamentally have a hard time believing that they deserve to be compensated on the same level as their counterparts for fear of not measuring up. And how is that when most times women are more educated and have more experience? Now, this isn't to say that either one of the sexes is better than the other sex. This is just relaying the facts of the matter. So while a huge part of the blame goes to companies and systems that perpetuate this very flawed ideology, it is on us as women to do the work to see what the numbers are for whatever role, and then when we are asked to join a team or to accept a role, we don't find ourselves like a deer in headlights. Additionally, somehow the powers that be have done a bang-up job at getting those that don't come from money to never discuss the numbers, or that it is impolite to discuss salary. Again, I want to draw your attention to the book, How to Be Successful Without Hurting Men's Feelings. And because in this book, the author speaks specifically to the topic of salary and how women can use different insights and strategies when negotiating their pay. Understand that it is your right to get what you deserve. However, a lot of companies don't like being transparent. But if you dig deep enough, you can usually find what competitive salaries are for whatever role that you're looking for. However, this doesn't mean that the information is always easy to find. In fact, you have to sometimes tap into other resources that you might not have considered. So, what are some solutions? More companies are adapting pay transparency. Women are beginning to support one another in professional spaces, and most importantly, demanding what we are worth. Now, demanding doesn't mean that we are going around stumping our feet or even raising our voices. Demanding our worth might be just as simple as acknowledging that we're aware of what men are making for the role and how we won't be able to join the team or the company without being compensated fairly. This is also where mentorship can be a silver bullet. The ability to tap into your network and to ask others who have been there and done that and continue to do so at a high level might have some tips, tools, and even strategies that are specific to whatever sector you are working in. You might be surprised to learn that many women are willing to share their stories of triumph and how they are able to overcome a certain challenge by employing a specific tactic. Now, I don't want this to seem like this is a battle of the genders or the sexes, because there are many men that are actually allies to women in the workplace and that seek to have not just an accommodating workplace for men, but for also their female counterparts. So this isn't a situation that it is just on the shoulders of men or it's all men's fault. That is not at all what I'm hoping to communicate. I'm just hoping to underline the fact that there are some discrepancies, and I am hoping to give some tools and strategies that we can help better position ourselves moving forward. So if you're listening to this and you are up for a raise or a new job, let this be your sign. Ask for what you deserve. So, where exactly is a woman's place? I believe that it's wherever she chooses to be, whether it is in the home or in the boardroom, whether she leads with softness or strength, whether she follows the traditional path or carves out her own. Your place is yours to decide. I have a couple questions that I would love for you to consider. What is one way you can take up more space in your own life? Could it be speaking up more? Could it be negotiating your worth? Maybe it is simply reminding yourself every day that you belong wherever you choose to be. Now, when you're thinking about these things, you might be in your mind thinking, well, I don't relate to any of this, or I find that how I move through life isn't encumbered by gender. if that is where you find yourself, then congratulations. But again, the research says that that isn't the case, and that many women find themselves struggling with these very thoughts each and every day, if not multiple times throughout the day. It is also an accepted understanding that we have to put on various different masks in order to move throughout the world. And some refer to this as code switching. So where you might be in a particular work setting, or if you are in a professional setting, then you are expected to speak or to behave or to even communicate or even dress in a particular manner. However, the way that you really are is completely different to that. And so what I am trying to establish is that there's a middle ground when it comes to how you are presenting yourself, when it comes to being transparent, because at the end of the day, all of us want to be accepted for who we are. But code switching is something that is particularly challenging and something that has been laid at the feet of many Black women, especially as it pertains to our appearance, because we are often told that our hair isn't the right way, or that our personal ways of self-expression isn't something that is even going to be tolerated in the office or in work settings. And I just think that that's just upsetting, because I feel that we all have various different stories and we come from various different backgrounds, and how one chooses to style one's hair shouldn't have anything to do with the work and the quality of work that one is able to do. But for whatever reason, this is still a conversation piece, even with the passing of the Crown Act. You might be surprised to learn that there are some careers that the Crown Act that basically says that you are able to, as a person of color, to present yourself however you would like as it pertains to your hair. Style doesn't lend itself to every career, particularly to those that are front-facing roles, like, for example, in the news media or in entertainment. Women are still expected to have a certain look to be considered professional or to be quote-unquote polished. Now, if you like to wear your hair, for example, like mine, if you want to wear it straightened, then obviously that is your prerogative. But to feel like that is your only choice, I think that is just disappointing, especially at this point in our history, with everything that we are negotiating, from inflation to just overall equality. And given that we are coming to the end of Black History Month, I just felt like we had to focus on this, what some might consider to be a sensitive topic, and that is hair. And I know that I have struggled with this, because in my career I have been specifically, it's been mandated in contracts how I was supposed to appear. And I remember graduating from journalism school ages ago, and I remember moving to Atlanta, Georgia, and I remember getting my first relaxer. And while it wasn't a traumatic situation for me, I found it to be just kind of shocking that that was something that was absolutely required in order for me to be able to accept the role as someone working in news media on air. And while that was years and years ago, this is something that many women are still navigating. So I would love for all of us to be a little bit more empathetic to one another and to be able to be a safe place for one another. And I would also like to suggest that if you are unable to find the community within your circle of friends or your circle of support or those in your life, then look outside of it. Look on LinkedIn, where you can find various different resources, and there's various different communities as well online that are on other social media platforms. I want to circle back again to the quote that I started with at the beginning of this podcast. And again, the quote is by Maya Angelou, and she says, again, each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. I wanted to circle back to that because, particularly as a mom, I feel that it is not only my responsibility, but it is my duty to support the decisions that my daughter makes. And so at this point, she is super determined as it pertains to picking out her clothes in the morning. And while I don't allow her to leave the house looking too outside the box, quote unquote, I do allow her to participate as much as she can at the age of 5. And I feel that even though this is one small example, just laying the foundation for making decisions and not feeling stressed about being who you are and being able to be authentic, I feel like is the whole point of this journey that I'm on with my daughter and various other women, as we are trying to turn the page on a very troubling history as it pertains to womanhood in years past. Now, this isn't to say that everything that happened in previous generations was wrong, or that there is an archetype or specific type that should be more celebrated than any other types of womanhood. But again, the notion that the only place for a woman should be as a wife and a mother, I feel like obviously we have moved past that, and hopefully we can continue to support the girls and women in our lives to continue to push beyond the expectation or to push beyond the social norms that we might feel trapped by. So before I end this podcast, I want us to contemplate the idea of, when is the last time you did something where you didn't think of the consequences as it pertained to following your dreams? Think about that for a moment. And again, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on social media at Tasha's Views. And again, thank you so much for taking time to join me for this episode of Womanhood Decoded. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.